Hi everybody, this is Dr. Milligan. I just wanted to take a minute to have you take a look at the essay that I wrote. I'm not saying it's perfect. It is still a draft. You'll see here at the top I've said that it's a draft. I'm sure that I will need to go back and do some revision on it, but I wanted you to kind of get a sense of what I was looking for in the essay. So notice at the top, I have a name. You're not Susie's student, but your name would go there. Then my name is here, English 8, and then the date. And of course, you always have a title for your essays. So remember we talked about, an effective hook. That's the thing that makes your reader want to continue. So, I just see if my hook makes you want to read. I'm not sure. So I'll just read it and you guys just follow along. Jennifer Aniston and Nancy Dow, Rosie O'Donnell and Chelsea, Joan Crawford and Christina, Naomi and Winona Judd. What is the one thing that everyone on this list has in common? They're all examples of mothers and daughters who have been, or still are, in conflict with each other. Conflicts between mothers and daughters have been around as long as there have been mothers and daughters. From arguments over clothes to more serious life decisions, mothers and daughters can always find topics that can lead to disagreements. In Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne and her mother are often at odds with each other, as Anne illustrates in her diary entries. Now, the next couple sentences, those are my thesis sentences. I have a couple. When Anne first enters hiding in 1942, she has a strained relationship with her mother that leads to anger, tears, and hurt feelings. However, as she matures while in hiding, Anne comes to a greater understanding of her mother and realizes that she may have been partly to blame for the conflict and distance in their relationship. So that's my thesis, okay? And remember, most of you are using the block format, so this is what I'm going to talk about in my first body paragraph. And I actually just used the same sentence. I'm not saying that you should do that, but that's what I did. So it says, when Anne first enters hiding in 1942, she has a strained relationship with her mother that leads to anger, tears, and hurt feelings. Anne feels her mother's crude jokes are insulting, and she believes her mother doesn't understand her. Now notice I'm making the claim. I have to support my claim with evidence. So here's what I put. In the April 2nd, 1943 entry, Anne declares, "Mother has pushed me away. Her tactless remarks and crude jokes, which I don't find funny at all, have made me insensitive to any love from her side." Anne seems hardened toward her mother's love. In several entries, Anne writes that she can't stand her mother. Now, I did find that in one place. I know it's in other places, but I couldn't find it right now. So instead of stopping, I'm just going to make myself a note, go back and find that later. In several entries, Anne writes that she can't stand her mother, that she hates her, and even envisions her mother's death. Still later, Anne refuses to allow her mother to say bedtime prayers with her, preferring to wait for her father to do it. Edith is obviously upset about this and tearfully tells Anne, "I cannot make you love me." Again, I do not know where that citation is. I'll have to go back and find it. As Anne matures, she realizes that she often sees issues from only her side. Okay, I need a transition right there. So I'm going to put however. It may not stay, but I think I need a transition there. Reading it out loud. Because what this is doing, this is called turning your essay. Turning your essay. And what that means is you are just I lost my train of thought, you guys, sorry. It just means you're transitioning from one part to another. So we talked in our first block about how Anne, was really immature and wrote terrible things about her mother. But then we learned that she does mature as she gets older. So here's my second body paragraph. As she grows up, Anne comes to a greater understanding of her mother and realizes that she may have been partly to blame. See, I have a typo right there. I don't see it until I read it. to blame for the conflict and distance in the relationship. For example, on January 24th, 1944, Anne writes, "I suffer now and suffer then from moods which kept my head under water, so to speak, and only allowed me to see things subjectively without enabling me to consider quietly the other side and to answer them as the words of the one whom I, with my hot-head temperament, had offended or made unhappy." This indicates that Anne is now aware that her moods and behaviors affected others. She is also able to admit that she has been temperamental and closed-minded in the past. Her ability to admit her faults shows that she is developing a mature outlook on how she contributed to her poor relationship with her mother. She also admits that she wrote hateful words about her mother and admonishes herself with these words. "I was quite shocked and asked myself, 'Anne, is that really you who mentioned hate? Oh, Anne, how could you?'" Based on these examples, Anne shows her progression from a moody, judgmental teenager to a thoughtful, reflective young woman. So, let's just review very quickly. This is my introductory paragraph. Remember I told you guys that the introductory paragraph is like an upside-down triangle. It goes from broad to specific, and it needs to end in a thesis statement. My thesis was actually 2 sentences long. This is my first body paragraph, where I talk about how Anne, what she was like before, early in their stay in the secret annex. Then I transition, I turn my essay, and I talk about how she matures while she's in hiding. So when I go to the bottom, this is my concluding paragraph. Now, in conclusion, you just kind of, reiterate what you've said before. Don't introduce any new information, however. So my conclusion says, mothers and daughters will always have disagreements, just as Anne and Edith Frank did in Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. The most poignant part of their story is that we as readers have no idea if Anne and Edith would have grown closer in the years to come. Sadly, Anne comes to her self-knowledge toward the end of her imprisonment in the secret annex. On August something, the Franks and their friend's hiding place was discovered by the Gestapo. Anne, her mother, father, sister, the Van Daan family, and Mr. Dussel were taken away to Nazi concentration camps. Anne's father, Otto, was the only survivor. So there is my essay, you guys. Like I said, I'm considering it a draft. It's not, I could probably change a few things here and there, but I just wanted you guys to see what an almost finished product looks like. Alright, so as a reminder, you will need to turn in your block essay graphic organizer or some kind of outline and your final draft, and please make sure that you review the rubric. Okay? Thanks, guys.